Okay, Sinatapi. Welcome to Native Wellness Institute's Wellness Wednesday. Nistu Nidaniko Makoyo Sakoyi. And I'm at the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center in the shade. So welcome to Wellness Wednesday. Oh my gosh, there's so much goodness happening here. Native Wellness Institute. I just want to say hello to everyone. We're now and look at everything's green. Look at we just have exchanging seeds inside, tobacco seeds, green chili seeds, tomato seeds. We're thriving. So welcome to Wellness Wednesday. So where am I? I wanted to share with you, as you get older, I had a birthday. I was born on April 20th, but these past few years I celebrate all month. I think it's colonized to only celebrate one day. So maybe all of you should think about having just celebrate all week, all month, all year, your life. And who birthed you and who gave you life. It's just an idea. So I journeyed. I've been on a road trip. I just went back to work today. I saw you last Wednesday, but I wanted to share some of that journey with you. And Mark Harris, our Black Indian Native Wellness Institute facilitator, master facilitator, will also be joining us. We're right at lunch, so there may be others joining us. Why should we go on a reflective journey without doing work? Why is self-care and vacations and retreats for ourselves, our staff, our families so important right now? And I'm at a think tank, but it's a feel tank right now, and it's a spiritual tank where we're all sharing with each other. So I want to just share with you. I left April 17th. So kudos out to the University of Montana. Had a matriarch storytelling session, and it was for an evening and 2 days, and it led into the Kyayo powwow. So that matriarch storytelling, so it's just very important to just take some time to listen to your elders, listen to your grandmas, listen to your badass aunties. Listen to your badass uncles, listen to your badass siblings, but matriarch. Why should we be listening to our matriarch? Of course, we love our grandfathers, and we love our fathers, and we love our brothers, but matriarch, for right now, there's some kind of growing synergy of listening to the stories, the creation stories, the stories that they heard as a child. They might be 60, 70, 80 years old, but the stories that they heard as a child need to be reheard. And so that matriarch storytelling, there was Northern Cheyenne representation. Wallace Beecham came in the evening, and he also cleaned us off. He took painted cloth and cleaned us off, as was said last week. But the matriarch storytelling that I'd like to just share with you a little bit is when there was a mixed grandmas. and mixed grandmas are meaning that there was a couple of Blackfeet grandmas. There was from some who were from Blackfeet, Fort Belknap. There was some from Crow, Upsalaga, and there was a lot from Canada. And so one of the stories that was, my mind is just alive right now. When they were speaking about kinship, and so kinship, the stories were on relatives, And so I just want to say to you that these are so important right now. Why should we listen to arranged marriage stories? Why should we listen to making a vow to another person and how to keep that vow? How can these kinship with not only humans but the kinship with the land? We're at a conference about stewardship and about taking care of the land and saving the earth during climate change. But this kinship, those stories taught us how to telepathically communicate with animals, with bears, with Namski lizards, with beavers, with elk, with even Cinepas, foxes, even Maninskis, all of these telepathic with animals. And then the telepathic, the stories were around how we take care of the earth. So we'll start with just the one I heard about water, was that the water animals teach us how to take care of the earth. And this conference right here it's the Alliance of Indigenous Environmental Stewardship. And my hat's off, and I applaud all of the tribes that are here from Alaska, the tribes that are here from Menominee, the tribes from urban areas and reservation, the 19 pueblos, the 29 tribes here. So that matriarch storytelling, what was so beautiful about it was that we just were fed, we had smudges, and we sat and listened in comfort. And so I'm just here in our group, we're just like eating and we're going back and creating a vision statement. But the matriarch conference, so on my road trip, there was like Charlene Burns there, Wendy, there was Audrey, Weasel Traveler, there was just so many sisterhood and such just fine. Oh, it was just so beautiful. And then there was a lot of young people who really hadn't had their voice yet. They were but they got their voice there by listening to the matriarchs. They worked for the Missoula Indian Health Center, and then they ran the powwow. I mean, that's what Indian people do after a pandemic. We just start to grow powwows, and we start to grow, storytelling. So I'm just giving you a vignette of the road trip. And then the Kayo, or Kayo, depending on the dialect, that gathering was beautiful in the sense that there was like a younger generation emceeing. They had older MCs, but it was all in honor of Earl Old Person. Earl Old Person, and his legacy and what he has left was just tremendous. And so that it was just such an honor to get stand-ups and to dance there. So you all are invited, if you could come to Missoula, Montana, May 11th, because Natua Pisaki, Carol Murray, and Lily Gladstone are going to be there, and they're going to wear their stand-up headdress instead of the cap. They might wear the gown, but they're going to wear their stand-up headdress. They're going to each keynote, and they're going to receive their honorary PhD on May 11th in Missoula, Montana. So you're all invited. So the Kayo powwow was a place that I came to rebirthed, thriving, renewed. And then there I went on a road trip. Most of you know I got a new truck named War Pony. And War Pony, I did some healing because I went the route that my family would drive when we were coming from Oakland, California, back to Browning, Montana. And I stopped, I cried, it was Earth Day. So I put out tobacco. I stopped, I cried, I put out tobacco. And I said, book support, Makoyo Sakoi, come here. I grabbed pieces of my spirit along this road trip and told it to come back to me and come home with me. When we live different places other than our home, we need to go back to those places, and we leave little pieces of our spirit. So I was gathering those. That's something Cecilia Fire Thunder has taught me. So then I came down through the Four Corners area, and I landed here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've been here so many days that it feels like I've been here for a month. Not only for the gathering, which was beautiful, but I have to say, now this is just for you Indians out there, help them not let non-Indians run it. Because they're just trying to make some money. But but it was still beautiful. I came down because of the Two Spirit community. Steve Barrios and them had invited me to come dance with them as an ally. And I drove down, and I had that intention, and it was so beautiful. There was about 50 of us. They treated us kind. They treated us gracious. They treated us respectful, and we danced along with the bustles coming into the grand entry. It was entirely just a beautiful thing to do. This kinship. Before I bring Mark on, I came to visit my brother and my best friends from college. But before I go into that story, I want to give my brother Mark Harris some time. Mark, what's going on here at this conference in Albuquerque? Introduce yourself and tell us what's going on.
Halito and Sawubona. I'm Mark Harris. I live here in Albuquerque. My wife and I moved here a couple of years ago during the pandemic. And I've been on Power Hour before, giving a Black Indian perspective, and con permiso, I'll continue to do that.
Yeah.
So what's been interesting about this particular conference is it's Indigenous women led. They're at the forefront. And I learned a new term called Big Green. So that's places like the World Wildlife Fund, the National Resources Defense Council, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Big Green. And I'm just asking, at least with myself, Black Indian questions like, how'd they get so big?
Okay.
And then, what are they doing with the money?
Okay.
And what's the focus? And what happens when alliances of native spaces and native ideas of ecology and conservation and preservation and cultural reviving and thriving and all those things get into place? And then how do you be inclusive?
Okay.
Right?
Tell us about that.
So let's define a generation as 20 years, 20 human years.
Okay.
From that point of view, Columbus came here 25 generations ago.
Oh, wow.
Okay?
Wow.
Okay. Then, if I'm going to be charitable, because people have been throwing around the term white supremacy,
okay,
let's say that's 1,000 years or 50 generations.
Okay.
All right? So, if you grew up on a land base somewhere, the land doesn't really begin. Let's say that it takes 100 generations for the land to teach you its language, and that becomes your language, and the land become the people, and the people become the land, and you indigenous.
Okay.
All right. So if your folks have been there for 100 generations or more,
Ooh, and definitely we were, Mark is going to continue, but we just were around rocks 10,000 years old, 20,000 years old, that showed all of the 29 tribes were here.
Yes, right. And so in this state, in the United States, the oldest footprints on the planet at White Sands, 22,000 years ago.
Okay. And they didn't have Crocs on.
And they didn't have Crocs on. Or Birkenstocks. Or any of that.
Okay. So, Mark, what's going on here? What are your thoughts? We're just also bubbling with how do we save the earth?
Yes. This organization, this group, this is the first time they physically met.
Tell us about it.
Since the pandemic. They were meeting on Zoom, and they kind of bonded to the degree that you can on Zoom. And now, part of what we're facilitating is, how do we work together? How are the relationships? What are our stories beyond what can be shared in an agenda on Zoom?
Okay.
Because that particular technology doesn't necessarily have a land base.
Yes.
At all.
Yes.
And so when we went out to the petroglyphs this morning and we saw these pictures of rocks, we had a geologist talk about, this is why, you scrape off, the veneer layer and that produces art. And how do you do that? And it takes a long time to do these paintings. It's not like you can buy crayons.
Our Mr. Sketch.
Or Mr. Sketch. It's a desert. And so you have to have your own water and be able to write and draw and all those other kinds of things. You have to be indigenous to this place.
Yes.
To do that.
Yes.
All around, the parking lot was in, there's a Valvoline. There's like suburbs in this part of Northwest Albuquerque. I mean, I live like 10 minutes away from this place. So, yeah, I can see there's a connection to a deeper, stronger connection that these folks are basically trying to build indigenous connection. Many of them are legally trained lawyers, there's scientists, there's community activists, there's all kinds of folks in this alliance.
Awesome. So, Mark, coming from Native Wellness Institute's perspective, and then your wealth of living more than 60 years, what struck you as the highlight in these past 2 days with this group? What just jumps out? Like,
one of the things, they were raised, some of them on the land, some of them with their elders, but not all of them.
Okay.
And so they have to relearn a sense of the sacred.
Okay.
And ritual and ceremony in everyday acts. Part of what we're showing them is that. Part of when we're talking about thriving and healing in the face of extractive industries, and the side effect of extractive industries is addiction.
Talk more about that.
Well,
addiction is slavery. I've heard you say.
Addiction is slavery.
Okay.
And if you don't have a connection to the land to revive yourself, if you are moved away from your indigenous land base,
yes,
and then you don't control the water. So, for example, Kaku Maui. So, raise and heal Maui. So this is a picture of the banyan tree in Lahaina, right? Which, with the fire, is now sending up new shoots.
Beautiful.
Okay?
Rebirthing,
right. Lahaina used to be a wetlands.
Wow.
Okay? And what happened is there's a local island right off the coast that was used for target practice by the U.S. Navy, and all the vegetation was destroyed, and the vegetation helped make rain and bring that rain to Lahaina. So it was a
Wow.
wetlands. And then
Wow.
all the water was diverted to make golf courses and things like that. So when there was a wildfire that got out of control, there was no water to put the fire out,
Wow.
which is a hidden story.
Yes.
And so I have relatives that are still living there, and it's much more than 100 people dead
Yeah.
there.
So we're not being told the truth.
We are, let's say we're being told a limited truth.
A limited truth. Okay.
A limited truth.
We'll go there. We just like truth on NWI Power Hour.
The whole truth. Because we can stand the whole truth.
Okay. Yeah.
And so part of dealing with extractive industries, like taking the water, it's not resources, it's life sources.
Life sources.
So whether it's our animal relatives that give their bodies so that we can be fed, like y'all buffalo folk,
Yeah.
or salmon, or water to grow plants, corn woman, etc., etc. Who controls the water? Who controls, is the land a living thing or is it real estate?
Okay.
The king's land. And that's where you get language like the steward came from the person that kept the land for the king.
Okay.
So we're forced to use this colonized language, this imported language, to frame preserving the land and restoring not only healthy relationships, non-addictive relationships, because when we lose that connection to the land, then we drink.
Mm-hmm.
We drink to deal with our grief.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna come into frame for a little bit, and then we're let brother gather some more thoughts. Us coming here, I've been resonating over and over in things I've heard from the past, and some are funny because I remember when everyone used to have a bumper sticker that said the hippies were right. And then I remember during the pandemic, we had a bumper sticker that said, our Blackfeet lives are worth more than your vacation. So I'll go back to the hippies were right. Our ancestors have always been right. Our ancestors for millennial did ceremony. Our ancestors spoke the language. Our ancestors birthed around trees like this that you see in the background. Our ancestors loved each other, and our ancestors, that original kinship, our ancestors defined our kinship. And in that kinship, it was so important because it was like you belonged with your people, the real people. Natsitapi, meaning real people. And in every language here, there's whatever they call themselves or self-identify often translates to the real people. And in that translation, you have to think of the spirit humanness behind that and that kinship. So I'm resonating. What do you think about this kinship term? Or we were saying all my relatives, and we were saying all living things. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I heard vicariously when you were talking about a telepathic relationship with non-human life forms.
Okay.
Okay, so, and our relatives teach it. They're part of our family. They teach us things.
Okay.
And not in school. They constantly teach us things by example and by their presence, even if it's a butterfly floating through our talking circle.
Yes. Yes.
And another relative just kind of walking through oblivious to what's going to people's
Some
tears.
white guy.
You said it. Yeah. I didn't. And because that person couldn't feel the vibe. And when we're talking about being an ally has power. And the power to not only see your struggle, but to help you heal with it, rather than cause you greater pain or be oblivious to your pain. They will stop and help you out.
What's an example of that?
My doctor, daughter, and Hilo turned me on to a book called A Paradise Made in Hell.
Oh, gosh.
Where the author talks about when disasters happen, who helps each other out and who exploits those in need.
Big Green.
Well, I don't know about Big Green, but I can definitely say who is helping people out. We definitely saw that, certainly in disasters like Maui.
Tell us more.
Well, my son of love with my daughter is a lifeguard.
Oh.
My daughter makes food.
Oh.
Right? And so there were the traditional Hawaiian people that basically weren't waiting for FEMA. They basically learned to help out and share what they had and began to distribute water and shelter and things like that because people had lost that. So you need to basically step up independent of the government. The right relationship of the government should be to help people out and help people in that effort. But there was a delayed response. If we saw Katrina was a delayed response.
Yes.
Right? Where people could rescue each other, but didn't. And so when we see it like the tornadoes and other things that are happening with climate change, who helps each other out and who exploits?
Yes.
And learning that. Because people can improve their attitude by dropping and helping out in a disaster.
Yes.
Rather than trying to profit from the disaster.
So let's talk about this disaster of addiction. Okay. So tell us something, and let's go back to that. And because I have when I'm healing, I really like to help heal from addictions and be conscious of what we become addicted to. So can you have some words with that?
Yes. Generally speaking, because there are specifics, drugs are feelings, or drugs help you suppress feelings.
Okay.
Now, they resemble chemicals that you have in your brain and your body already.
Okay.
Right? So alcohol is like putting a plastic bag over your head.
Okay. Yes.
Cuts off the oxygen, and your brain, it dulls the pain. Yes, you can get somebody drunk in whiskey and cut their leg off if if you don't have the technology to save their leg because they've been in war or whatever. But when we look at the ritualizing of alcohol in terms of that ceremonial chemistry, it deadens certain feelings.
Okay.
What you should actually feel. So yes, you should actually feel grief when somebody transitions because you miss that person. Now, my particular substances were cannabis, which I used to self-medicate my rage.
Ooh, okay.
Right? So part of that rage, because it kept growing, the rage kept growing, and marijuana did not take away the rage. It made me feel good for a little bit, but there's a reason for me feeling rage. Anger comes from hurt.
Okay.
And so instead of deadening that anger or changing it to euphoria or whatever, I should look at healing the hurt first and then making myself stronger to deal with a situation that's hurting me and ending it. So addiction becomes the substitution of inner skill for a substance.
Okay.
And then the substances become more, shall we say, available than the technology of how do you deal with the things that are constantly hurting you.
Okay, so while you're gathering your thoughts too, because When I came out here on this journey, I started talking to you about this road trip. I came into a different world, especially when I was in the city, and then I came into a different world when I was out and about in the country. And so, what if our addictions weren't malice? What if our addictions were to, because I was trying to think, how am I healing? I heal when I walk out in the woods. I heal when I walked today looking at those pictographs. I heal when I'm walking to the ocean. I heal when I swim around in the lake. I heal when I can make something rather than buy it on Amazon. So this addiction to shopping, this addiction to our phones, the dopamine, this addiction to, for some of our relatives, I heard someone say that to be high on fentanyl is really feels good. And so I'm a recovering person. Tomorrow I celebrate 36 years of being clean and sober. So, yeah, woo, woo. So Mark, how do we get our people to be addicted to good things like our children? When they're born, we become addicted to them and protecting them and feeding them and holding them and making them comfortable and having safe space. And that can become disruptive. But let's just talk about, what do you think about this? Because addiction is slavery. So on this trip, what I tried to do, and I was good at it in some days and some days I wasn't, I actually put my phone where I couldn't reach it. like I threw it down on the floorboard so I had to continue driving, and I shouldn't be not looking at my phone. You guys know that, right? You're not supposed to be looking at your phone and driving. So that's why they put all these new vehicles, you can still talk. But I was trying to think, what were the other addictions? I think I'm addicted to healing.
Addiction is probably the wrong word.
Okay, so what would you say?
Theda,
Okay.
who we used to work for vicariously,
Okay.
talked about natural rewards.
Okay.
So food, water, they actually use sex as a reward, and doing things that make you feel good.
Yeah.
And make you feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
So there's an old Ethiopian proverb which says, the seeker of drunkenness will one day have enough. They'll be dead. No, the seeker of drunkenness will one day have enough.
Or go to the Betty Ford Center.
Yeah. The seeker of wisdom or knowledge will never have enough.
Oh.
So a child, being a grandfather, 11 grandchildren, and I was taught this way, and my father was taught this way, taught to read at 2, and I was taught to read at 4, following an ancestor who on a slave ship learned themselves to read at 4. Not on the slave ship, but once they got here. So the family tradition has been literacy, because a child's brain is a computer that is watching everything around them, and they can learn every language that was spoken around them, or that is spoken around them. That's our genetic default. So on Turtle Island, that meant at least 1,500 languages.
Wow.
In Africa, that's 3,000 languages.
Wow.
Today,
Okay.
right? So multilingualism, literacy, increases your intelligence. So kids are curious. So if they can frame a question in whatever language, give them the answer to their understanding and build on that, because they're curious. They want to do that, and you get high from learning. You get high from learning and learning about, what is that little lizard? What does it mean to have, wait, they're all female? You mean they don't have sex and they lay eggs, and as soon as the New Mexico whip-tailed lizard, they're all female, they lay eggs, and the eggs are all female, and they're ready to go. They're survived. It's called precocious. So you can get little children high by making sure they're precocious, because they're asking questions and they want answers. So there is that Rudyard Kipling story about the elephant's child with insatiable curiosity.
Oh.
Right? Always asking questions, right? And so gets in trouble for that, but gets smarter.
Uh-huh.
So you can get high by being smarter. I'm a black science nerd. I want to know how drugs work in the brain,
Yeah.
and how you can reproduce the effect without the drug.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the answers to addiction. Having a relationship with the land gets you high. And
That's it.
so that's why part of where addictions have come up in indigenous populations is they've been displaced from their land base. So even if we're talking about the colonizers,
Okay.
right? So you're right. If that's only 25 generations, those folks were displaced from their land forcefully. In white supremacy. Oh, it's the Game of Thrones kings basically imposing their will, and people had, shall we say, survivors of genocide in certain populations, like the Irish and the Scottish, who were preyed upon by the English and treated like Native Americans were in their own land.
Wow.
So that's why, not to raise a controversial statement, but one of the reasons that the Irish are in solidarity with many of the Palestinians is the same guy formulated British policy against the Irish and the Scots. And so they get this is a solution that needs a more peaceful indigenous solution than a colonizer solution.
So,
While you're gathering your thoughts, I heard some of our participants here pray for Gaza. I heard some of the students here talk about student protest. I did not see the news, but everyone's talking about us standing up in arms like we did in 1968. And I haven't participated, but I thought if I see, or when I'm around, if it, there is the protest, but think about this out there, Native Wellness Institute, we always ask you to be positive, productive, and proactive. Think about how you can be positive, productive, and proactive. But I was saying to myself, I can't say what I'm going to do, but what can I do to empower or protect those human beings at Gaza or around the area, or go back to Ukraine? And I'm pondering that now, because I know that as soon as I get home, I promised myself I will campaign for John Tester. That I will campaign. We have 5 new councilmen that will be elected in June. And so I'm going to see who's running, and then I'm going to choose, and I'm going to stand up for the ones I believe will bring the most healing to Blackfeet Nation. So with our elections, in this group, we have a few more minutes that we can visit with you on Wellness Wednesday, Native Wellness Institute. So as you can see, I am just on fire. I feel fierce, but that's why I asked my brother to come and help me be in a calm space, and I'm getting calm. So Mark, what do we do now? What do you and I do now as old school, old G's? What do we do now?
I have an FBI file because of my protests in the Vietnam War. I was talking with the elderly gentleman who is volunteering for the Forest Service, who went with us on the petroglyph walk, and he was talking about, Vietnam. I go, yeah. He basically joined the Peace Corps,
Okay.
I went to college, but my number was 35 and they were taken up to 50, and basically 6 months later Saigon fell and the Vietnamese, won.
A create God thing. Yeah.
Right? So part of the piece about, are you going to do protests or are you going to do programs?
Okay.
So it's programs is where it's at.
Okay.
Bobby Seale of the Black Panthers, who created 65 social programs, like an ambulance service, like free breakfast program, like addiction services and things like that, before the government had gotten into that. Bobby Seale said, yeah, we're college educated. We were all had college degrees. And when we started the Black Panthers, and it's not because we showed up with guns in Sacramento. It's because we fed school children when the government was not. That's why we were dangerous. So it's not about protests.
Okay.
It's programming.
Okay.
1,200 people have been killed by police since George Floyd. Okay? Even after that. And again, how many people, how many missing, murdered Indigenous women and relatives have been killed since that in the last. So when I understand why people can be outraged by 1,200 Israeli Jews being killed by Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
But for many of us, that's like a Tuesday. Okay? And we're in our own homeland.
Yes.
That is on Turtle Island.
Yes.
So can we work to make people healthy, keeping ourselves healthy, finding a wave of activism from our anger so that we can calm ourselves down?
Okay.
Because one of the lessons that people have failed to understand, yes, Nazis did the Holocaust, but they learned from America what was done to black people and natives in America.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that Israel can learn, let's not replicate what the Nazis did, what the Americans did to people of color.
Okay.
Okay? Because I, as an American, I can buy a ticket to Tel Aviv and I can go to the beach, like tomorrow. But a Palestinian woman has to apply for a lottery ticket, and then with her family, she can't go with her family. She had to wait 12 years to go to the beach.
Oh.
Okay? Segregation.
Okay.
Apartheid.
Ah.
Right? So again, how do we create more healing?
Okay. Okay.
I gotta have lunch.
Okay, you go do lunch. I'm gonna
Thank you, sis.
yeah, we're just thank you. I'll be wrapping up. So how Mark leaves us with, how do we do healing? And so I'm inviting you. Native Wellness Institute will be Suquamish Nation, June 11th through the 13th. Native Dads Network will be with us. White Bison will be with us. Al Pulley's NAFA will be with us, and the American Cancer Foundation. So we're programming. This group here, they programmed to bring cleaner air in the Denver area, in the Los Angeles area, in the Seattle area. They do programming to bring clean water. One of the things that is getting less and less here is clean water. So, things like, capturing all the rain and rejuvenating it, clean water and clean earth, so I'm thinking about that programming. But healing, I would strongly recommend us to start to do men in wellness, Native men in wellness, and bring all the sons, to do Native women's wellness and bring all the daughters, and to do LGBTQ2 spirit. So you're all invited. There is the 28th annual Two Spirit Gathering, which is, there's many, but it's indicative of they've been doing this for 28 years. So there's tremendous healing, and that'll be the mid-August on Flathead Lake in Montana. You can go to twospirit.com, just find out how to register. But other healing, and just in our remaining minutes, we have to take some time off of our regular being busy. You know, as you can see, the five spots. I'm just today I got Vaseline on it. It's really healing. 9 stitches, 15 skin graft, but it's healing, and I'm so grateful that I'm cancer free. I'm so grateful. But all of us can be cancer free. All of us can be healing. And one of the things of coming here, all of these young people here, they honor me. They just ask me to talk about how we make a spirit plate. And I brought along a young sister from the Denver area to make a spirit plate, and how to pray and what we pray for with our spirit plate. And when we feed our ancestors. So I'm going to ask, if you make a spirit plate, ask our ancestors to help us with Gaza, the racism, the isms, the fentanyl overdoses. Ask our ancestors to help us. That's healing. So this entire trip, and part of it, you know, I was just like saying to myself, hey, Theda, you're an old lady. You can't just jump in your truck and go on a road trip. But I did. And yeah, there was times and I just thought, should I be doing this? But I did it, and I'm gonna ask for your prayers. I'm gonna leave very soon, before tomorrow morning, and I'm gonna drive back home. And so the program, as Mark, we're gathering in here, so they're calling us we're facilitating, so I need to run back in here. We're starting a missing and murdered office, and we're having a grand opening on Saturday. So remember, May 5th is when No More Stolen Sisters, All Wear Red, and we're opening an office. And so that's why I'm driving home. I want to be home, but I want to get there, and I want to be with all of the sisterhood, all of the Blackfeet women who are opening that office, and all of the Two Spirit, and all of the tribal council that gave them the office space. So think about the programming, what programs we have. Go volunteer, go give money, go be the ally, write a grant for them. You know, all of these. I want to shout out, this is my last, a shout out to Valerie Tallman, who wants me to write a book. And so she has the deadline, and she wants, anyway, write a book. Go back to school, right? Or just go out and give the knowledge, the indigenous knowledge that you have, and help teach the language, the rites of passage. I'm going to go and visit with the person now from Northern California who wants to bring back the rites of passage for young boys and young girls and 40-year-olds. She wants the rites of passage there. So we're going to go back in and talk about that. So thank you for coming to Wellness Wednesday. We're cutting it short. We're right in the middle of facilitating a large group called the Alliance of Indigenous Environmental Stewardship. So Mark and I are going to run back in there. We come to you every Wednesday to give you positive, productive, and proactive things that are happening in Indian country. And there was just thousands here dancing, and thousands here at this pueblo. This is a place to come, because everything in this cultural center here, even from the gas station to everything, all the proceeds go back into the pueblos, back to the Indian people. There's no in between, and there's no non-native with these resources. So there's all kinds of good things happening here. So with that, I just have to say, Kitsikako mem, I love you. Lateral kindness is our best bet. Lateral forgiveness and self-care. Self-care, self-care, self-care. I still feel like Rudolph. It's okay. I love you, Theda. I don't care what you look like. I'm just going to love you up because self-love is what we need. So until next Wednesday, kitakito matsuno. Love you.